Hi, I'm Valerie Ipson, the writer-in-residence here at the Apache Junction Library. And today I am in the Apache Junction Library. The library is one of my favorite places. I've been coming to the library since I was tiny, and it's always fun to see what's available. And today I want to talk a little bit about writing books for you aspiring authors out there. The library has so much to offer, especially when you're getting started. I admit that now I do own quite a bit of books on writing, but I started out by going to the library and just seeing what they have on the shelves for me. This is one here at the library. It's many of you have heard of Janet Ivanovich, and so this is just one example of the books that are available about writing. And there's different types of books. There's books on craft that will talk about story structure or different elements of writing. There's books on motivation to write. And there's also books on just story in general. And so I think you'll find all of these on the shelves. I did bring a few that I wanted to share today that are some are classics that you've probably heard of, but I recommend them. This is an old classic, John Truby, just on story, on why stories are important and why stories resonate, why our brains respond to story. Another one along these lines, which is newer, and it's kind of hot right now, though it's been out for several years, is called Story Genius by Lisa Cron. And I highly recommend this for just kind of getting inside what a story is and what a short story should contain so that readers will respond to it. And then you've got all your books on craft. This is a good one to start with. I recommend this highly for anyone, but of course for beginners, just because it's the very basics. You gotta learn why and how a scene works, how a stimulus, it needs to be a stimulus and then a response, or your story pacing isn't going to work, or your story is going to be confusing to your reader. And so really basic, good basic book on story structure. I think almost any author has heard of this book, Save the Cat. This is huge, and it was actually written as a screenwriting book to show how to plot a movie script. This is by Blake Snyder, but authors adopted it because his 15-point story structure is just like spot on for writing books, and so because of that, because of the popularity of it with authors, about 2 years ago this came out. It's based on Save the Cat. Save the Cat writes a novel. Jessica Brody wrote this, and you can see it's my now go-to. I have so many different sticky notes and bookmarks in this book because I use it all the time. Almost every day I am looking at in this book. It takes Save the Cat, that same format, but it applies it more specifically for novels. And the great thing about this book is that she has so many different examples, like 10 different examples of types of stories you might write, like the whodunit or the rites of passage story, or just all the different types of story. And then she lays those out, what elements those need, but then she gives you actual examples of books. So you can read about The Kite Runner, for example. It's a rites of passage story. And she lays out how he used each of the different 15 points that author did to write that story, and why that story works is because it has that structure to it. Some people worry that if they follow formulas like that it's going to ruin their story, but it's so not true. Because when you go back to why story works, like the book Story Genius, you'll see that our brains are wired for certain elements, for certain things to happen in a story, and they will apply no matter what your story is about. If you're writing romance, I love this book. This is a great one for story structure romance, for getting to that happily ever after. All right, and there's so many books. I think it's important to read stories that inspire and motivate you to write, because all writers are going to experience that time when it's hard to kind of push through, and you need that extra motivation. And so these are two that I recommend. There's so many more out there that are good too, but this is an early one that I read, and I just love it so much. I checked it out for the library initially, and in fact, I believe I bought it from the library when they were selling it. But anyway, this is a great one. Really fun. Right is a Bird, very funny, but motivating. And then I'm sure you've heard of Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. This is kind of a go-to for all writers and authors. She's funny, really funny as well, but she tells the truth about writing and just what it's like. And so I highly recommend Bird by Bird as well. So I hope that you'll take some time to spend time in the library to see what's available. There's so much that can inspire you and motivate you. There's so much that can help you to understand why story works, and so much to help you with your own story structure when you're hitting those walls and trying to push through to finish your novel. And I want to just say one thing to end. Besides reading, writing, or books on writing, don't forget to be reading. I don't know if there's an author out there that doesn't also love reading. I just don't know if that person could exist. But I would just encourage you to read, especially read in your genre. If you're writing YA fiction, then read all you can within that genre. And not so that you can get story ideas, but it helps you to get inside that world, to see what's working, what you like, what you don't like, what elements that genre contains. And the same is true for if you're writing high fantasy or if you're writing romance. Read, read, read as much as you can within that genre. And that's what I just wanted to share today, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us today.